For many years, we have planned a trip to the mysterious Lake Zhasylkol in the Zhasylkol. It's high time to bring our dream to life. Early in the morning, we are starting from Almaty city. Without stops, following the newly built highway, you can get to the regional center of Taldykorgan in 3 hours. To fully enjoy the trip, we are stopping at every river we encounter. So far, we have crossed 3 rivers, namely the Ile, Koru and Karatal. Our team has been long planning to raft down all the Zhasylkol rivers, but we still don't know when we will be able to do it, as such an endeavor requires a lot of time. By the way, Kazakhstan has over 100 rivers that we would like you to see together with us. Each year, the Outdoor World expedition has been managing to explore only 5 or 6 of them. The Zhasylkol rivers allow developing the irrigated agriculture in the foothills. Along the route, fields of sunflower, gardens and grain crops are stretching as an endless quilt. For the 3rd year, drought has been observed in certain areas of Kazakhstan, yet it's almost not felt in the foothills of the Zhasylkol. Here, there is still enough water. Taking a better look right off the road, one can notice the early Iron Age mounds. This land, rich with water, fertile soils and large pastures, has been attracting people since antiquity. Here comes another river on our way, Aksu. Entering the plain, a dam with a small hydropower plant crosses it, supplying electricity to Aksu district with the administrative center in Zhansugorov village, named in honor of Ilyas Zhansugorov, a classic of Kazakh literature. Driving another 40 kilometers along the highway, we reach the banks of the Sarkand River. Shokan Velikanov was the first one to describe a settlement on the Sarkand in 1857. Today, the population of the town of Sarkand, the district's administrative center, is about 12,000 people. To get to Lake Zhasylkol, first we need to register in the office of the Zhongar National Park. Previously, they called the Zhasylkol the Zhongar because during the Zhongar Wars, the invaders often used this ridge to cross into the territory of Zhasylkol. The current name better corresponds to the geographic as well as historical logic. Today, the Zhasylkol is a globally recognized tourism region.
Чем отличается путешествие по дорогам общего пользования?
What is the difference between traveling along public roads and inside specially protected areas? If, for example, you want to travel across a national park, then the first thing you need to do is to register in the park's office, pay an environmental fee, and get a permit to follow one of the official tourist routes. This is exactly what we came to do in the office of the Zhongar National Park. Before entering the territory of the national park, it is necessary to pay the mandatory tax of 0.1 MCI and the garbage collection fee. Then you need to undergo a safety training, examine the route's map, and after that, accompanied by a guide, tourists can finally go on their hike. Marat Nurgazioli, what if someone decides to violate the rules and enters the park's premises passing by the checkpoint and without paying any fees? What could be the penalty? Such a violation falls under Article 380 of the Administrative Code, stipulating for a warning in case of first-time violation and a fine of 0.2 monthly calculation indexes for the second offense. 0.2 MCI probably appears meager for potential offenders.
Для нарушителя. Какое нарушение ждет?
What about the punishment for not following a public road or, say, an approved vehicle route and driving through the virgin land instead?
Маршруту, скажем, по целине, по полю. Выехать из дороги.
Driving off the road over bare land or grass is strictly forbidden.
Какая часть парка?
Tell me about the park's recreational, conservation, limited economic activity and stabilization zones. How big are they?
Деятельности и зона стабилизации.
Заповедная зона, площадью более 40%.
The conservation zone occupies about 40% of our total area. The ecological stabilization zone about 14%. The tourist zone roughly 30%. And the limited economic activity zone 17% of the park's total area.
Зона ограниченной хозяйственной деятельности 17% от всей площади.
Strict compliance with the functional zoning regime is the main principle of national parks operation around the world. Wild animals must have their own resting areas where nobody would disturb them. Neither livestock nor tourists, motorcycles, helicopters, nor any economic activity. Tourist zones should be sufficiently comfortable and attractive for tourists to allow parks generate income. The border between the zones must be strictly protected and the corresponding violations must be strictly punished. In the so-called cooperation zone, local residents can engage in light and resource-efficient types of economic activity such as tourism, horticulture, beekeeping and folk crafts. Tourism development represents an important mechanism for the work of national parks, yet their main task is to preserve existing ecosystems and restore the previously disturbed ones.
Каждый год высаживаем 30 гектаров и переводим.
Every year we plant 30 hectares of trees and transfer them to the Forest Fund. What about the survival rate? As of today, it's up to 80%. In addition, since this year we have committed to expand the planting area by another 22 hectares. The park has 2 tree nurseries. We ourselves sow the seeds, take care of seedlings and plant them within the park's premises.
И окончательно выращиваем уже на территории своих же саженцев.
Правда, что яблоня...
Is it true that Malus sieversii or the Siever's apple is the ancestor of all domestic apples and that tulips growing in the Junggar-Alatau foothills are the ancestors of all the tulips that we buy in the stores today?
Мы сейчас покупаем в магазинах.
Я на 100% уверен.
I am 100% sure of that.
Много лет
Professor Jangaliev had worked on this issue for many years. This fact was 100% proved by the entire world scientific community. Our Zhasylkol is indeed the homeland of all the apples and tulips in the world.
А насчет тюльпанов это наши цветы.
Николай Ильич, вот у вас полный цикл выращивания.
Nikolai Ilyich, you said that you have the full cycle of growing Malus sieversii, that you don't buy seedlings but grow them from the seeds that you yourself collect and then plant them on your territory. What about the cost? The president has issued the order to plant 2 billion trees. I wonder how much money this project will require. How much does one Siever's apple tree seedling cost?
Сиверса во сколько обходится?
Все начинается со сбора яблок.
It all starts with collecting wild apples. We call it the Siever's apple tree or Almaty wild apple. It is Red Book listed. We collect the apples only from certain sites. We have 1 hectare forest seed and genetic reserve plot. This is where we get our seeds from. Then we process them, check their overall condition, and then sow the seeds and take care of the seedlings. As a result, the price of one seedling amounts to 80 tenge.
Стоит где-то в пределах 80 тенге.
The Sarkand nursery is located on the outskirts of the town. Here they grow not only the Siber's apple but also other tree species like hawthorn, spruce and pine. This is also a tourist route. People come here to see how trees are grown. In fact, many people are interested, especially the Siber's apple tree. Just recently, a large international expedition came here. Conservation and restoration of the forest fund is one of the main tasks of the national park, but it is equally important to preserve the animal world. Every year, with the help of photo traps, you monitor the animal world. What is the overall dynamics? Are the populations growing?
Растет численность.
Ну, конечно, благодаря фотоловушкам, которые нам безвозмездно выданы.
Of course. Thanks to the photo traps donated by the UNDP, we have collected a lot of valuable data.
Очень много материалов. Бурый медведь на сегодня примерно поносит.
Based on our estimates, we have about 400 brown bears, as well as about 120 argali that we had registered in 2020.
На 2020 год зафиксировано уже более 120 особей.
Whereas earlier the park's inspectors and the science unit staff had to wait for days to photograph a wild animal, now photo traps provide a huge number of great photo and video material, allowing scientists to discover a lot of new things about the secret life of animals. A couple of decades ago, the images of snow leopard taken in the wild could be counted on the fingers of one hand, and today there are hundreds of them. Based on the pattern on the beast's fur, scientists can even put together an individual passport for each predator.
Такжан Канатбековна, вы занимаетесь очень сложной и очень благой.
Tokjan Kanatbek Kizi, you are doing a rather difficult and very noble work. We are non-professionals. Could you tell us how many snow leopards currently live in the Jungar Alatau? How many ibexes or say argali? Are their numbers decreasing or increasing? How do you actually calculate their populations?
Узнаете.
Научными сотрудниками отдела науки ведутся две научные темы.
The science unit staff work in two main areas. The ecological state of cats, where we monitor Manul cats, snow leopards and Turkestan lynxes, and the current number of snow leopards and its habitat.
На сегодняшний день число
As of today, we have about 12-15 individual animals.
где-то до 15 особей.
What about ibexes? After all, they constitute the main food base of snow leopard. According to our data, over 1,500 ibexes live on the park's territory. The Zhasylkol Alatau has long been popular among mountain tourists. More than one generation of these athletes has come for multi-day mountain hikes to these beautiful and hard-to-access places with virgin nature. Yet, the mass tourism infrastructure is still developing.
Когда мы рассматриваем в интернете фотографии,
Looking at the images of the Zhasylkol Alatau on the internet, we see absolutely amazing views and gorgeous lakes. What tourist locations would you recommend to begin with?
Мы на своей территории разработали 12 туристических.
We have developed 12 tourist routes in the park. All of them are operating today. One of the most popular ones now is the track to Lower Zhasylkol Lake.
Именно Нижний Зhasylkol.
In the visit center, you can make the first impression of the park as well as get acquainted with its landscapes, tourist routes and animal world. There's even the park's 3D mock-up model. This is Lower Zhasylkol Lake, right? And this here is Lake Zhasylkol, right? How difficult is the trail? It's practically impassable. The majority of the park's recreation and environmental education unit staff are young. In fact, they are much better and more creative in advertising the park on the internet and attracting tourists through social media than the mature specialists. The Recreation and Environmental Tourism Unit mainly works with tourists. We have 11 tourist routes in the Zhongara State National Nature Park and 2 more eco trails. This year to date, 1,435 tourists have come to our park. For comparison, over the entire last year we received 1,171 guests. The development of eco-tourism is one of the park's priorities. We have been conducting multiple environmental education activities in the social media. We disseminate information about the national park and what interesting things people can do here, how to behave while on the park's premises and what not to do. Recently, we have conducted several volunteer sanitary cleaning raids. We will leave the horse trip to the cherished Lake Zhasylkol for dessert. In the meantime, we will get acquainted with the less famous but wilder Otopkan Lake. The road to it goes through the Otopkan Pass.
Мы находимся на перевале Отопкан. Внизу мы видим долину.
We are at the Otopkan Pass. Below you can see the valley of the Tentek River. This place is known far beyond Kazakhstan by the survived animal world. Local morals, argali and bears are still walking the paths that their distant ancestors had laid in the Upper Paleolithic. These places are practically not exposed to any economic activity. We see no cattle or shepherds here. This is the territory of the national park and it is strictly protected.
Национального парка эта территория строго охраняется.
From Kazakh, the word Tentek means furious. Now it looks quite calm, but during the rapid glacier melting, it gets hot-tempered. The trunks of huge trees thrown out onto the steep river banks are a good evidence of this. In the mid-mountain zone, summer is still in full swing, but above the forest belt, it may already snow at night. Otopkan Lake is not very large, yet extremely picturesque. On its shores, you can encounter a wide variety of animals. First of all, of course, morals. In early September their mating season begins and the surrounding forests get filled with their loud calls. Male rivals are simultaneously attracting females and searching for each other to fight. Although morale tournaments are only ritual, sometimes they end in the death of one of the fighters. Roe deer prefer foothills, but sometimes you can encounter them at higher altitudes. In summer, Siberian mountain goats or take-care ascend as close to the glaciers as possible because it's the best refuge from predators. Yet, even the steepest rocks cannot save them from snow leopard. The ibis is not inferior to ibexes when it comes to rock climbing, and no one can refuse its courage. Wild boars are social animals. A small piglet cannot run fast, cannot cleverly climb the rocks, and so its only salvation is to stick to the herd. Its mighty razorback can protect the piglet from any predator around. Partridges' salvation is in their reproductive rate. One brood can have up to 10 chicks. On the banks of the Tentek River in the Uygun-Tas area, the largest necropolis of the Turkic Khaganate is located, dating from the 7th-9th centuries AD. 45 kilometers north of Sarkand, there is an ancient settlement included in the UNESCO World Heritage List.
На окраине села Кайлык
On the outskirts of the village of Koylik, there are the ruins of the medieval settlement of Kaylik. Once upon a time, it was a large center on the Great Silk Road. Currently, archaeological excavations are taking place on these hills.
раскопки.
In the past, the town hosted the headquarters of the Karluk Jabgu that William Rubruk, the ambassador of the French King Louis IX to the Mongolian Khan Munker, described. The Karluk state, formed after the collapse of the Turkic Khaganate, survived during the Mongol invasion and prospered until the 14th century. The ceramic remains are scattered all over the place. This is a typical burnt brick. We have found similar ones in Sauran. We are heading to the village of Lepsi, where the office of the Lepsi branch of the national park is located. The road curls along farm and hay fields. Our hearts rejoice with the fact that the terrible drought practically did not affect this area. Abundant water resources of the Zhasylkol Outdoor cover almost all economic needs, but this does not mean that we can waste the water. Things could change in the future. Lepsi is the administrative center of Lepsi Rural District. The locals are mainly engaged in animal husbandry and beekeeping, as well as are cooperating with the national park. You can get acquainted with the history of the village in the local law museum right at the entrance to the town. The museum has been operating for a long time. We have recently moved to a new building. It used to be a school and now it is a branch of Taldyk Organ Museum. Can we have a look? Of course, although the reconstruction is still going on. The museum is small, but the exhibits found in the vicinity of the village give visitors a general idea of the region and successive eras, starting from the Paleolithic, from the early Bronze Age metallurgy to the more recent and tragic history. During the Civil War, fierce battles took place right in the village and claimed many lives. This is a tamga of the Timurid era that conquered Mogolistan in the 14th century. We are in the National Park's Lepsi branch. We have 35 permanent and non-permanent staff. The off-season employees include about 10 people.
Мы все ратовали за развитие внутреннего туризма.
We have all advocated for the development of domestic tourism, and thanks to the pandemic it finally started emerging. Yet not all are happy with the fact, as many tourists don't comply with the rules and often litter. What about the situation here? Are you still below your maximum recreation load?
Не превышается.
У нас рекреационная нагрузка соблюдается.
We are still observing our recreational load. Thank God the number of people this year is as we had planned. Perhaps due to us being far from large cities. We are rather strict about it because, as I have mentioned earlier, other national parks near large cities are experiencing an increasing pressure. So far it has not reached us. In any case, we are working proactively. In addition to the lake, we have 8 more tourist routes.
Еще есть 8 маршрутов.
The famous Lepsi Forest Nursery is located right behind the village. Seedlings of different ages are growing in each cell. When the time comes, some of them will be planted in their natural environment. Others will go for sale. The nursery needs to make money too.
Площадь питомника занимает 25 гектар.
The nursery occupies the area of 25 hectares. We have coniferous and deciduous plant species here. The conifers include Siberian spruce, common spruce, blue spruce and Fraser fir. The hardwood ones include linden, ash and common birch. Malus sieversii yet is our main focus. Every year on the territory of the Zhasylkol National Park, we plant 30 hectares of plantations and an additional 5-6 hectares on the territory of the Lipsy branch. This is for the Sever's apple tree. Spruce, Fraser fir and pine are mainly used for landscaping in the adjacent communities. In many regions of Kazakhstan, people are complaining about drought causing deaths among cattle and lost crops. There is an opinion that it is all connected to the global climate change. Are you experiencing drought here? At the moment, all of Kazakhstan is suffering from drought, but we don't have this problem. It rains all the time. There's enough moisture.
Влаги хватает.
As if proving these words, a heavy rain with hail suddenly began. The hail is terrible, look. This is our guest house. The visit center also has several guest rooms. How much for an overnight stay per person? According to the committee's rates, it is 2,500 tenge per person. And here comes the most interesting part of our journey. At the checkpoint, we mount the horses and head to Lake Zhasylkol. Today we will cover 15 kilometers.
Вот мы сейчас двигаемся к озеру.
We are currently moving through the apple forest. On some of the trees you can see branches broken by bears.
Медведь поломал некоторые ветки.
Botanist Johann Sievers first described the wild apple tree in 1793. During the Soviet time, academician Aymak Jangaliev had continued his work. It was he who proved that all the apple cultivars originated from this exact species. Wild apple trees withstand both drought and frost, which gave breeders the opportunity to create cold-resistant apple varieties in Zhasylkol. In the Zhasylkol Outdoor there is another wild apple species, the Nedvetsky's apple tree, described by the secretary of the Zhasylkol Regional Statistical Committee. Its genetic material is also used in the creation of cultural and decorative apple varieties. The horse trail runs along the Agenekatsi River, the main tributary of the Lipsy River. It is quite turbulent and fast. Osmano mountain trout lives here. Our guide, inspector of the Zhanalash forestry, Andrei Babenko, knows the mountain paths as the back of his hand. He had led hundreds of expeditions to the most inaccessible corners of the Zhasylkol Outdoor. The fall is not that far away, guys, judging by the color of leaves. We are finally at our destination. In front of us, there lies Lake Zhasylkol. They have started building a tourist shelter near the parking lot. Burning fire is allowed only in specially designated places. Due to glacial nourishment, during summer the lake water acquires the color of creme brulee. And in spring and autumn it becomes almost turquoise. The lake is located at the altitude of 1,630 meters. It is 2 kilometers long and 600 meters wide.
Озеро образовалось во время землетрясения.
The lake formed during an earthquake. The gorge got blocked. Its depth is 90 meters. The mysterious depths of the lake probably hide some kind of a monster, like the Loch Ness one. Andre even told us a story when he saw something resembling a monster swimming across the lake. When it came ashore, it turned out to be a female moral, though. Nevertheless, hot news lovers do not give up hope of encountering some kind of a dinosaur here. We wouldn't mind it either. In certain places, the shores descend into the lake with steep and rocky slopes. It's impossible to walk through them, so to enjoy the neighborhood, it is necessary to ascend 500 meters. It would be great to explore the shores on a canoe. Even wandering around the lake on foot, you can see a lot of interesting things. For some reason, there is no fish in the lake, although there is plenty of it in the Agynekatsi River flowing from it. The rules for visiting national parks prohibit walking outside the designated trails. Firstly, in order not to disturb animals, and secondly, it may be unsafe. A stone on a steep rocky slope may twist under the foot and the person will roll down. At night, the temperature at such an elevation drops to negative values, which promises nothing good for an inexperienced lost tourist. The park's inspectors are responsible not only for protecting wildlife from careless human actions, but also for protecting tourists from wildlife, which can be cruel at times. Near the lake, you can see a lot of animals, but only early in the morning or late in the evening. Although we had tents, to experience the full harsh touristic romance, we decided to spend the night in an ancient cave.
Ну что, коты в мешках.
Hey there, cats in the bags. It's time to get up. What time is it?
Мне кажется, мы находимся.
I think we are in a cave of forgotten dreams. There is a cave in France, it's called Altair, where all the walls are covered with rock paintings. Here it looks very similar. We had a great sleep here. It rained at night. The guys slept on a straw mat here, and I didn't notice that I slept on the campfire site. The Neanderthals probably cooked here, or maybe somebody cooked them.
Неандертальцев готовили. Я вот в книге читал, что где-то...
I read somewhere that in these places, Chieftain Aninkov hid gold during the Civil War before fleeing to China. It was an entire car of gold, can you imagine? I've heard the rumors, but no one has found the gold yet.
О, Рустам,
Rustam, look, I got some high vitamin breakfast for us.
завтрак витаминизированный для нас. И под каждым есть...
There were both a table and a shelter under each tree, right?
Рустем, я тебе сейчас один умную вещь покажу.
Rustam, do you know whose tracks are these?
Он, посмотри, это чьи следы?
You are kidding me. Is it bear tracks? Maybe it paid a visit last night and was looking for something to eat. Mountain raspberries are very tasty, but collecting it, the main thing is not to bump into a food chain competitor. Rustam, did you want to see a bear? There's one over there at the glade. We can say that we completed the tour program 100%. We saw not only the magnificent lake, but also its master. It's time for us to get back. We are packing our stuff in the saddlebags called the korзhens.
А аппаратуру нужно, конечно, везти на...
The only way to transport the filming equipment is in our backpacks. Sometimes horses squeeze between trees which may damage the korзhens, so everything of value should be safe behind the back.
Ну вот мы и
Well, we have finished the filming at Lake Zhasylkol.
на озере Жасылколь.
In the village of Lepsi, you can buy a can of the famous Lepsi honey for only 2,500 tenge per kilogram. We got our trophies, guys. Time to head back home. "15 kilometers from the lake, the Agınınkati tributary flows into the Lepsi River and enters a narrow canyon called Cheeks. There is a tourist route going through it as well. There's plenty of mountain trout in the Lepsi River. Fishing in the national park requires a special permit, and outside the park's premises, any fisherman has the right to catch several fish. For about 20 kilometers, the Lepsi River loops through the rocky canyon, and almost exiting into the plain, it is blocked by a dam with a small hydropower plant. In the plain, the Lepsi changes its temper and from a stormy mountain stream turns into a calm floodplain river trimmed with tugai forests. The Lepsi River is famous for excellent fishing. There are catfish, common carp, pike perch, bream, roach and other fish species here. Prior to flowing into Lake Balkhash, the Lepsi forms wetlands and lakes. The animal world of the small Lepsi Delta is quite rich and diverse. There are boars and roe deer as well as waterfowl. One of the 7 Zhasylkol rivers flows into the brackish part of Lake Balkhash, contributing to maintaining the water balance of the Ile-Balkhash water basin. Even though the Lepsi's contribution to the lake is much smaller than this of the Ile River, without it, water mineralization in the eastern section of Balkhash Lake would increase so much that freshwater fish would not be able to live in it, and near-water mammals would not be able to drink it. Now, wild boars and roe deer drink water from the lake's eastern part, and this maintains this huge and very important ecosystem in stable condition. Thanks to the fact that it is not regulated and flows directly from the mountains, it was able to reach here. The water feeds the riparian woods, the great and beautiful habitat for both Bukhara deer and tigers. Our journey along one of the 7 rivers of the Zhasylkol region has come to an end. Follow us on the Kazakh TV's YouTube channel and in the social media. All the best!